Replacing the ippy-dippy will be the deliberate practice, and it will encompass the work being done in PLCs. As teams engage in the recursive cycle of PLCs, they are already well on their way to completing the deliberate practice portion of their evaluation. For this section on the deliberate practice, please reference the 2015-2016 Bay District Schools Deliberate Practice Processes and Guidelines. This presentation will review the 6 steps for the DP for the 2015-2016 school year, while the Processes and Guidelines packet provides more in-depth guidance. Step 1 is the identification of a primary PLC. All staff members, including instructional staff, school-based administrative staff, and district staff, participate in PLCs. For many, this is an easy decision to make. A second grade teacher will obviously work with other second grade teachers at the school. But what about those who are the only person fulfilling a role at a school? We call these singletons. A singleton occurs when there may only be one PE, music, art, advanced placement, or professional development provider at a school or within the district. When the academic area is similar, not identical, such as the science department or a math department, the PLC must still focus on the same PLC vision as all other PLCs: common assessments, data analysis, answering the 4 driving questions of the PLC. The team should decide to focus first on content areas in critical need where achievement is low or where EOCs occur. When the academic area is dissimilar, PE, art, and music, for example, then the group may focus on a common problem rather than a common assessment. The second step is for the now identified PLC team to discuss and establish goals, gains, and barriers. First, teams discuss a goal or goals they would like to set for the 2015-2016 school year. Due to the changing FSA and the new MAP assessment, relevant data may be an issue for many. Because of this, goals are encouraged to be numeric, but may or may not be assessment data. It should be noted that for the 2016-2017 school year, and as assessment data becomes clarified, how we set goals will change. For now, goals need to take into consideration where the PLC team is on their journey to being a fully operational PLC. Teams just beginning to engage in PLC work may have very different goals than a PLC who has been established and fully functional for years. Next, teams discuss gains they hope to make in the 2015-2016 school year. Beyond the numeric goal that the team just set, what does the PLC hope to learn throughout the PLC process? Again, this will depend on where the PLC team is on their continuum of PLC implementation. A beginning team may not know clearly what they want to gain beyond the first common assessment cycle, while more established teams may have already begun the complicated conversations around grading and reporting. Finally, teams want to think about the barriers to the goals and gains. For example, lack of information can be a barrier, and as such, the team needs to acknowledge this barrier in order to start thinking about how they will address that barrier. Acknowledging any barrier also helps an administrator determine resources the team needs to accomplish the necessary work. Gains and barriers may correspond. For example, a team may know that the inclusion model will help them differentiate instruction for their students, a gain, but they may not know anything about what an inclusion model looks like, a barrier. Acknowledging the barrier can assist the team in targeting the professional development needed. There is no set number for how many goals, gains, or barriers. The identification of the goals, gains, and barriers are to help teams establish the work that must be done next in action steps. For step 3, the team creates their action steps. PLC teams consider the actions that must be completed in order to address the stated goals, gains, and barriers by the DP due date, which is April 1st. It should be noted that these action steps are fluid and they will need to be monitored and updated. Some of the action steps will have hard due dates, while some action steps may merely be statements of the PLC processes the team agrees to abide by, how they will be completed, who will complete them, and by when they will be completed. These may or may not be dates. For instance, the team may decide in their action steps that following a common assessment, the team will meet the day after the common assessment is given in order to quickly understand the results and initiate changes to instruction. Step 4 is simply stated. PLCs engage in the PLC work. This is where teams roll up their sleeves and get down to business, examining standards, building common assessments, planning and then implementing instructional strategies, implementing common assessments, analyzing common assessment data, and refining instruction based on the data. This is the ongoing recursive cycle of PLCs. Step 5 occurs twice. Step 5 is to reflect both mid-year and at the end of the year. Prior to reflections being due, PLC teams examine the goal or goals and gains they initially set and review the action steps. Have any been met? Do any need to be adjusted? Does anything need to be added? Individuals then respond to the reflection questions and aims. These reflections are an important piece of evidence for the next step, Step 6, where the administrator assigns a rating. Step 6 now uses the information from Steps 2 through 5 as the evidence necessary for a rating. 1 score will be given for the DP. First, let's start with effective. Notice how an effective rating is based on an individual fulfilling personal responsibility in the action step by the due date, contributing to PLC discussions, leading if a facilitator role was assigned, meeting outside the PLC and presenting information back to the PLC, and making a change to personal practice, which may or may not be sustained. For highly effective, notice that not only is the individual responsible for completing the due dates and is a contributing member of the PLC, but they are also problem-solving and stepping in or back as a facilitator, leader, and team member regularly and as appropriate. This person is also regularly collaborating with others outside the PLC and bringing information back that serves to strengthen the PLC's work. Finally, this person has made a relevant change to personal practice with verifiable impact and/or has sustained implementation of that change. Notice that for an unsatisfactory rating, the person has demonstrated no significant effort to work on the PLC's goals, gains, barriers, action steps, and in fact demonstrates an indifference and/or resistance to the data and the PLC DP process. A needs improvement rating is for those who may inconsistently fulfill their action steps, demonstrate limited evidence to work on the goals, gains, barriers, and action steps. Their participation is limited or inappropriate, and they may be resistant to step forward as a leader, facilitator, or team member. They may attempt the change to practice, but it is limited in nature. As you can see, if teams and individuals are engaging in PLC recursive cycle with fidelity, then a rating of effective or highly effective is easily attained. The remaining portions of the deliberate practice processes and guidelines can help teams as they engage in the PLC work. For example, under additional information, there is guidance for administrators. One states that administrators attend assigned PLCs at least once monthly. Attendance serves multiple purposes, which include offering assistance, guidance, and feedback, as well as an evidence collection point for rating the DP. Next is the DP PLC timeline, which spells out what is due and when. There is also a learning goal and scale for PLC implementation. This is useful in having teams identify their current PLC status as well as set a goal for the 2015-2016 school year. Also are the PLC meeting minutes that all teams complete each PLC meeting and submit to their administrator. The purpose of these meeting minutes is to help provide teams a common structure for reporting progress, but also provide teams with common topics, guiding questions, and resources that may help them as they engage in the PLC work. Please take a look at the second page of the minutes and note that under the Data-Driven Dialogue portion, that MTSS note. It is possible to replace Tier 2 MTSS documentation with the PLC minutes. In order to do so, teams must regularly complete the full PLC process: curriculum, assessment, instruction, data-driven dialogue, and the subcategories within. Working as a PLC must be a pattern of practice when meeting student needs. If you have any questions, contact Jennifer Jennings at 767-4117. There are also 2 examples of data charts that can be used for data analysis. All teams will collect data into a collection chart. The principal will decide if teams can choose the data chart or if a common data chart will be used by the school. These 2 data charts can be downloaded from the Appraisal System webpage. Next is guidance a team can use for the data-driven dialogue process, and then there is a definition section. This section helps to define words and phrases used throughout the document in order to ensure consistency in implementation. For example, the phrases "collaborates with others" and "a shared balance of teamwork" are defined with sample roles included for the latter. I know that this new deliberate practice is a huge change in our way of thinking and working. There will be questions as we make this shift. Some questions will have easy answers and some will not. Together, we can answer these questions, and together, we will positively impact the growth and achievement of Bay District School students.